Welcome back, you all, for Chapter 3 of CHD 201. And today, the Chapter 3 is entitled Families Today. So, how would you define family? The U.S. Census Bureau defines family as two or more people living in the same household who are related by blood, marriage, or adoption. Perhaps your definition of family is not exactly the same and might be more broad and include people who don't fit necessarily into your traditional definition of family. The family is the oldest known social group. How well family members get along and work together help determine the stability of the family. Every family is unique, and the relationships within the family are always special and complex. Adults bring to family relationships all of their childhood and adult experiences, as well as their hopes and expectations. Children come into their families with certain inborn ways of reaching out to their parents, to which their parents respond. Marriage is defined as a legal contract and ideally an emotional and social union between two partners. However, the definition of a marriage is a legal contract. So let's talk about identifying healthy families. So, what makes a family healthy? The criteria listed in front of you on the screen also includes adults who have established healthy family dynamics, such as encouraging to one another. They have open means of a communication, which means that they exchange messages and information with at least two people in their family. Through active listening, which means the receiving of a message and providing feedback to the speaker and letting them know that you understand their message. That's active listening. And then, of course, body language is the sending of nonverbal messages through body movements. So, open communication includes active listening and body language, establishing rules and boundaries, creating expectations that are reasonable, being models of family values and the desired behaviors, having a sense of humor, and also allowing room for each family member to fulfill their personal goals and mature and change. So let's talk about the family life cycle. Parents and children go through similar stages, and it's called the family life cycle. And of course, there's 6 of them. And in the beginning, it's just when the couple is just 2 people, and that's the beginning stage. The childbearing stage, parents give birth to 1 or more children and assume their roles and responsibilities in caring for their children. During the parenting stage, parents are going to focus on guiding and nurturing their children through the school age and teen years. The launching stage is when children start to leave their home to make lives of their own. The mid-year stage is when parents find more time for themselves than they did when their children lived at home. And of course, the aging stage lasts from the time parents retire until one of the parents dies or there's a death of the partner. So there are lots of societal influences on families, and one of the things that has changed over time is when you think back to the Industrial Revolution, when most families lived on farms, they everybody worked for the good of that family. A lot of times, children were considered to families had children in order for them as a source of income, really, for them to get out there and work on their farms. So, of course, times have really changed, and that has a lot to do with societal influences. And one of the things, 2 of the main ones are advancements in medicine and in technology. And of course, medical advancements are allowing people to live longer, and technological advancements also are changing the norm. Okay, the way we normally lived. Because we've got cell phones, tablets, televisions, videos, all of those types of things. And they affect how family members communicate with each other, how much time we have. We spend a lot of time for entertainment. and help complete tasks around the home. And another thing that technological advances has done for us is that information is so readily available. It's just right at their fingertips, and you can access information from all over the world. So let's talk about family types. There's lots of different family types, and we're just going to talk quickly about each one and a few of their characteristics. So nuclear family is two parents and their biological child or children who live together. Those are a nuclear family. Single parent family is made up of one parent and his or her child or children. Typically, the majority of single parent families, the mother is the custodial parent. Okay, and a custodial parent is a parent who heads the household and has that legal responsibility for caregiving. Okay, and there are lots of we have a growing number of single parent families, and there can be some challenges that come along with single parent families, and one of them is reduced resources, such as reduced income, reduced time, reduced energy, because it's just one parent doing all of it. Okay. Another one is our extended families. An extended family is a household that includes the parent or parents and their children and other relatives. Okay, so like maybe aunts living, uncles living all together with their nieces and nephews and their parents or grandparents moving in, that type of thing. Extended families are very common in many countries around the world. Okay, and not so much in the United States as in other places around the world. Of course, we're seeing step families or blended families, and this happens, and step families or blended families form when one or both adults in the relationship have children from a previous relationship living in the home. Okay, and it's fairly common form. And today, many of our children actually have two step families that of each parent, and then that parent's new partner, and then maybe their children. Okay. We have families that have adopted children. An adoption occurs when a child of one pair of parents legally becomes the child of other parents or parent. Okay. Adoption legally ends the rights and responsibilities between a child and the birth parents or the biological parents. Now, there's lots of ways in which people can adopt children. They can use an adoption agency, which is an agency that's licensed by the state to handle adoptions. There's an independent adoption sometimes. A person, maybe such as a lawyer or a physician, works out the details between the birth parents and the adoptive parents. Of course, there is also something like an illegal market adoption, which is hence illegal. Okay. And it's almost like who parents are spending money and they actually pay people for children. Those are kind of illegal adoption an illegal market adoption. Now, of the adoptions that we talked about, there can be a closed adoption or an open adoption. Now, a closed adoption means it's confidential. Okay. It's the identity of the birth parents. It's kept from the family that's adopting the child. Okay, so you're adopting the child, but you have no idea who the birth parents are. That's a closed adoption. This can, in time, have some issues for children when you have a closed adoption, mainly because you don't know the family, you don't know the family history. So think about if you were to have a medical issue and they ask you, does it run in your family, and you're adopted? Well, if you have a closed adoption and you don't really know anything about the birth parents, then you can't really answer those questions effectively. Another type of adoption is open, and that's when there is some degree of communication between the birth parents and the parents that adopt the child. Okay. And next is foster families. A foster family is a family in which an adult provides a temporary home for a child who cannot live with his or her birth parents. Foster parents assume the parenting responsibilities for the children that come into their care. They fill these roles until the children reunite with their birth parents, they're adopted, or they just become adults. And children enter foster care or foster families for a lot, typically because there's some kind of problem within their birth families, and each person's case is so unique. So if you were trying to pinpoint exactly Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, y'all. If you were trying to pinpoint exactly what the main reason why children would come into foster care, you couldn't really, because each one is so unique. And lastly, we'll talk about families that have grandparents as a head of household. There's a growing number of children in the United States that are living in households that are headed by their grandparents or other relatives. These they typically do not have legal guardianship, but they do assume the parenting responsibilities as the guardian, but it's not a legal thing. Okay. Grandparents usually make good parents for their grandchildren. That's pretty typical. Um, However, there are some risks that come along with it, like the grandparents not being physically able to care for their grandchildren. Maybe because they are retired, they may have less income coming in, and now you have a child or children involved. Um, they maybe have worked their whole lives and are looking ready to retire and do some things that they want to do, and then in pops their grandchildren, so it kind of keeps them from they have to give up their plans of retirement. Um, but like I said, on a positive side, grandparents usually do an excellent job in raising their children. So thanks for joining me for chapter 3, and I'll see you next week, okay?